Good afternoon. Thank you. If I could ask you to finish up those conversations. There's so much to hear about today. Thank you for your attention. I'm Dan Gibbons, as I mentioned, from the City Club of Chicago. Thank you all for being here. As you know, we are incredibly proud as City Club to gather civic leaders from so many different sectors. You all take time out of your day to be here, doing all your good in your various positions, but coming here together is where things really happen. And we do not take that for granted, and we are very happy to share this platform not only with the people like the Congressman, but all of you, and you'll see that there's so many City Club speakers that are here today. So I do want to mention a few folks that are here. I thank the sponsors. We very much appreciate you all. And then certainly elected officials who have quite a bit going on these days. So if we could, and I have quite a list, so let's try to hold our applause. Alderman Brian Hopkins, Alderman Bill Conway, Alderwoman Sam Nugent, Mayor Rory Hoskins, Senator LG Sims, Council General Brian Cahalan is here from Ireland, Judge Michael Cabnargi, former Alderman is here, Tom Tunney. Do I see? I know he's on the list. Okay, welcome back. And then we've got, Assessor Fritz Kagi, of course. Welcome back to you. And I mentioned City Club speakers, and we've got quite a lineup coming in September, but we've had an amazing year thus far. And so many of those speakers are in the room. We've got Loyola President Mark Reed here, had a great presentation. City Club Speaker Nicole Benolkin from 360 Chicago. Jackie Grimshaw is here, and we hope to have back soon. Kevin Willer, of course, has graced this stage. Chancellor Marilyn Miranda, right up here. Thank you, Chancellor, back to school. David Doig is here. Mary Ellen Karen from After School Matters is here, and with a couple colleagues from After School Matters. Chon is here from Navy Pier. Tom Katarik from the Civic Committee. These are amazing people. Josh Hale is here from Big Shoulders. Awesome people who are doing great things, and especially with Josh's work and Mary Ellen's work. I got to stop. I never know what to do at times like this, but yesterday was a pretty rough day, and for so many, especially young parents. And I dropped my kids off at school today and held them a little bit closer. So I never know what to say, but maybe we take the moment to think about all the good that all of you are doing, and all of your institutions do, and that your families do, and do a little more in honor of the two kids that are no longer with us and with the city of Minneapolis. And as their mayor said, it's not about prayers and thoughts, and we've got those, and that helps. But I think it's about action and doing things that can further our society and further our city. I think it was 70 years ago today that Emmett Till was killed. And look what has happened since then. We have quite a ways to go, right? But look at how much has happened in those 70 years. Sometimes it takes some horrible circumstances. And just know that at City Club, we recognize that, we care about it, we try to do this so that we can move the ball forward. And so that things can get better. We talk a lot about gun violence here. We talk a lot about mental health. And we're committed to doing that more and more. But we very much appreciate that what all of you do in your day jobs and in your lives. And let's do, like I said, just a little bit more in honor of the kids that we lost yesterday and their families, and in the memory of all the folks around the world that are feeling that in Ukraine and in Gaza. There's so much happening. And we're here in this beautiful, wonderful city. We're exercising our First Amendment rights. We're enjoying this great summer, and we're about to embark on a wonderful Labor Day. do that, please. Come back to City Club. Keep these conversations going. But do that always with your prayers and thoughts, because I do think those are helpful, especially when you're in a different city and not able to just give somebody a hug there. So thank you for allowing me to share that thought. And on that, as I mentioned, everyone here is just doing so many good things, and there is so much good in the world. Our guest today, who you're going to hear from in just a minute, touches on every one of those issues that I just briefly mentioned, plus so much more. He's been a congressman now. He's been in public service for, I think, 30 years. Community service, public service for 30 years. He's represented the 5th District of Illinois since '09. He's on the Intelligence Committee. He's the co-chair of the Congressional Ukraine Caucus. He's on appropriations, which really helps bring money back here locally, investment home to Chicago and to Illinois. Somehow he's claimed by Roosevelt University, by University of Chicago, by Loyola. You're going to have to explain that. He even teaches at University of Chicago when he's not playing hockey. Don't know how that all fits in. Or posting on his incredible Instagram account, by the way. Check it out if you haven't. It's really convinced City Club to up our game on Instagram. So he's a great man. He's a great public servant. We're very fortunate to have him representing our incredible city and state in Washington, D.C. Please welcome back to the City Club, Congressman Mike Quigley. I say, please think of any questions, because we're not going to sit down. We are going to stand up, but we will do questions. So if you have any, I've got some pre-submitted. Let us know before we close out. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, my friends. Hey, Northeast Southwest, home is best. It is great to be back with you in the City Club. Thank you so much for being here. Let's thank our servers. Yeah. My extraordinary staff is here. Robin Russell, pride of Loyola University. My chief of staff's here from D.C. I learned a long time ago, service is the most important thing. My great service office staff is here, led by Erica Reardon. I can't mention them all. We're going to run out of time. Although, it would be more fun if I just went around the room and said how much I like you all, I know you. And then it's time for tiramisu. He mentioned our Instagram account. It's tough doing this, being my comms director. I mean, Aviva Bowen can explain that for a while, who's an extraordinary talent. She was my first comms director, but Victoria in the back does it and really does a great job, so let's thank her. There's a lot of alders here, and I just want to throw in a few plugs. I think every mayor should have to sit in an alder's office for an hour a month and just answer the calls that come in, right? A mayor needs to think like an alder, right? What's basic, right? What are people really focused on? So it's how I got started, and we'll get into that in a second, but it's basically potholes, street lights, rats, zoning issues, and the people who have staffed an alder's office will tell you there's a long, strange list of other calls that come in. But it's real important for the mayor to get that, to think locally. At the same time, the alders that were introduced today are awesome because they're thinking globally as well, right? We've got alders that understand the bigger picture, and it's not just a parochial way. Our friend Tom Tunney's here, taught me about why small business matters, and he is the one that got rid of the head tax, which we need to make sure we don't put back in place. It's nice to have the senator here. It's nice to have another appropriator. And the aldermen that are mentioned, new and upcoming star, Bill Conway is here. Alderman Hopkins gets how important community involvement is, and he plays hockey, so really top of the list with me. Sam Nugent is here, who I've seen firsthand, who gets, again, just how important service is, works as hard as anyone, but gets we're proud to work with her in my office. It makes all the difference in the world. Who are the other aldermen that are here that I might be missing? If not, pardon? I got them. Because, you know, I don't serve, I served under this president, right? No. Article 1, we're actually higher than the president. I said, you serve with the president. And the alders don't serve under the mayor, they serve with the mayor. This is and must be a partnership. So there's other folks I'm going to recognize as the event goes on. But we got to ask ourselves, why are we here? A lot of my colleagues are crisscrossing the country, self-effacing, looking inwards, right? It just can't be about what's happening with President Trump. I spend a lot of my time with that because it does matter, and I do believe he's having an extraordinarily negative impact on our city, our democracy, the rule of law, the list goes on. But we have to look inward. We've got to solve our own problems, in particular because we're not going to get help from Washington, D.C. So, and I get it, there's a lot of talk about future elections. The best way to answer that is to say, right now we should be talking about not who should run, but what needs to get done, right? Where are we right now? How did we get here, and how the hell do we get out of here to a brighter future? Because this city has extraordinary opportunities to move forward, but it's going to take really tough choices of people who understand just how much this city means and just how serious those issues are. So I look forward to doing that. It was suggested that I talk about the fact that we're at a crossroads. Crossroads was 12 years ago, folks. It is now, what the hell do we do 12 years later? And the people have said, well, you know, why you and why now? Well, I'm chairman, to be, when we win back the House, of Transportation, Housing, Urban Development. So for those who question this, and I saw the mayor was a little critical of those who were criticizing him and saying they're becoming actuarials. I'm not sure you need to be an actuarial to understand the financial problems that we're in, but I respect his thoughts. But nobody protested when, as the governor said, I got $40 million for Union Station. Nobody questioned my role when we helped get the money for the Red Line extension. So maybe you'll give me a slack to talk about how the money is spent, because it sure as hell shouldn't take this long to build these projects. It should not cost $1 billion a mile to extend the Red Line. That's a disservice to the people that we're trying to help. It shouldn't cost more than market rate to build housing, affordable housing for all Chicagoans. So, you know, maybe they'll cut me some slack and let me talk about those things. Because it's 12 years past, at least, and we never addressed these core problems. They were swept under the rug. The public was misled. The public was lied to. They're still being lied to. It is still the dirty little secret here that, oh my God, let's just solve these problems for a while and get through the next election, then we'll address them then. And we continue to do that, and now we get to a situation where, as great as this city is, the people, the food, our architecture, our universities, our museums, our water, right? When the DNC was here, the delegates from southern Texas, California, Arizona, they stood at Lake Michigan and they just, you can't see across it. You know, you can't. And we got 5 of them. But all that is built on this crumbling infrastructure, right? It's not that we're close. I mean, we're there. We're out of runway, and we're seeing the results of that. You know the issues. 40% of the city's budget is debt. Our pensions are funded at 25%. We have some of the highest taxes in the country. Our public transit's facing a fiscal cliff. Our schools are issuing junk bonds and turning out students who aren't ready for the future. The cost of living is too high, and young people can't afford that first home. Too many people feel unsafe, and I can't stress this enough. Slow, dramatic pause. I cannot stress this enough. The cavalry is not coming. If anyone thinks that Donald Trump is going to bail out anything or help the city of Chicago or any major city, you haven't been paying attention. But even if we had control of the House and the Senate and the White House, anything that looks like a pension bailout, for example, getting through the United States Senate is just not going to happen. I have every bit of faith in our governor, the General Assembly, but they've got their hands filled elsewhere. So let's at least talk about some of these. I got, 20 minutes today, so this is going to be top lines. Stay tuned. Pat Cermak's kind enough to invite me back to his group. We're going to talk in a lot more detail about each one of these categories. We need to, at the very least, restructure, streamline, reinvent government with a focus on efficiency. Starting with today, we're talking about transit and housing. We need to meet our massive corruption and pension issues head on today. And we need to build, baby, build, grow out of our financial problems and not tax out of them. We need to be pro-business, pro-development, pro-job creation. You know, it struck me, someone said, oh, you sound conservative. If you look at, we put the bio out there, got a pretty good union voting record. A lot of folks would describe me as a lakefront liberal. That's fine. But if you care about all those things, you want to have the resources to do it. You don't want to start way behind the line of scrimmage. Again, 40% of the debt, 40% of the city budget every year's on debt. The state is going to be at a point really soon, if not now, the state will be paying more for pensions than education. The state will be paying more on pensions than health care. I'm not sure that's anybody's priority, and there is a way out of it. But look, let's talk about corruption first. My first interview when I got elected was in D.C., and it was Colbert, Better Know a District. You can still watch it online, really funny, as long as you know he's Groucho and I'm not. But appreciate where we are in the world, even if it's just meant to be humorous. His first question was, Quigley, 5th District, Congress, Illinois, Rostenkowski, Blagojevich, have you picked out your jail yet? No, we haven't got to that yet. I also hear them on the floor. My staff's heard this a lot, but I do hear these jokes on the House floor. What did one Illinois prisoner say to the other? The food was better here when you were governor. And this is from Jersey guys. So, stupidity wears both hats. This isn't solely a Democratic problem in this state, but it is complete and thorough. Our history of corruption, you know the scorecard. May have the numbers off a little. I haven't seen the press lately. 38 aldermen have been convicted of corruption since '73. 4 of the last 11 governors have served time. Forget all that. There's a cost, a financial cost to corruption. I get it. Here's what's way worse. The public thinks the system is rigged, right? They don't have faith in the system. So my older friends here, really good group, really good sampling of city council, they're going to have to make really tough choices. And I trust they're going to have to do this. But it can't be where The city council's trying to do that, and the public's not sure why decisions are being made. Are they for the public good or somebody else's good, right? And the only way you can combat that is transparency, right? To a painful level. I started the Transparency Caucus in D.C. As a joke, I told people we'll be meeting at an undisclosed time and an undisclosed location. But you get the idea. We're on C-SPAN. I do think that helps. Well, when I met with the Supreme Court, because my subcommittee funded them, said, people, we don't want to be on TV because it would be taken out of context and not look good. It's just the opposite. I reminded them that the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the Senate didn't want that released. It was also screened at the same time in Berlin and in Moscow. They didn't want it released because they thought it made us look too good. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. The trains don't always run on time. The city council's not always going to be perfect. We're sure as hell not. But if people can watch it, they can have a little more faith in how those decisions are being made. And we need to pass the toughest ethics ordinance in the country. It has to apply to everyone. Hey, and bring on the inspector generals. We got to give them the tools that they need to get this done. So when we talk about reinventing streamlining, I did this at the county. I wrote these reports you might remember that really endeared myself to the county board president, a late president that I liked a lot. The idea was, if you could start over, what would you do, how would you do it, and who would do that, right? So we get a little glimpse of this with the people, and I applaud them, who introduced the measure in Springfield to consolidate our transit agencies. It's a good first step. So don't just think about transit. Think about everything government does. And the fact that if Illinois had half as many units of government as they do now, we would still be #1 in the country, folks. We structured this government in the 19th century, right? When there was all unincorporated areas. That's why we needed township governments. Why we needed the structure we needed then. But it sure as hell is not set up to deal with 21st century problems. So we have to understand that and appreciate that we've got structural deficits, all these units of government. So our alders are being tasked with an extraordinarily difficult situation, right? Cut or tax. That's what a structural deficit will do. So in the end, if you do a little of both, all you're getting is a government through time that's more expensive, smaller, and less efficient. That is going in the opposite direction. And we're doing this, again, not because we hate government. We're not Doge, which is corrupt and inept. We're doing it because we love the services it provides. It's why I started talking about working for a Chicago alderman and understanding, answering those phones, and solving that basic commitment of what government is, and ensuring that into the future. That's what that's about. And that's what reinventing, streamlining, consolidating government has to be about. And some of the things we do in implementing this and moving forward are be painful too. Look, I understand how thoughtful we're going to be incorporating AI. But we cannot be the last entity in town using a buggy whip. When I was a Cook County Commissioner, we had not yet digitized medical records at the time Cook County Hospital. I was on the litigation committee. Mistakes were made. People died. And it cost more, and it took more person power to do the job. When we digitized and automated and put computers into these systems, we saved lives, we made government better, we saved money, we didn't need as many staff as we had before, and it was the right thing to do. So it's my message that I hope folks are listening to, that we're doing all these things because what government does matters. So how do we grow out of this? I'm going to show a little video in a little bit about our restaurant association and our friends there and what motivates me and what gets me going. But from a broad point of view, I'd say we need new cranes, new conventions, new companies so that we can invest. right, in our neighborhoods and our schools. We get additional revenue. You know, our population used to be 1 million more. Even if we can get back up to 3 million, that's 3 million people, more people who are going to be paying taxes, right, growing this economy. And it just makes all the sense in the world. So I'll just give this to our friends at the Restaurant Association. Some of this is going to be tough for folks to swallow, but the bigger picture, it matters. You got to preserve the tip credit. You got to speed up the permitting process. You got to get our own finances under control, and you sure as hell cannot have a head tax come back. I knew I'd get some applause over there. I'm going to talk about housing and transportation. And the reason I picked those two, because again, we have unlimited time and we're only going to talk top lines, is to be metaphysical. Einstein used to say space and time are the same thing. Housing and transportation are really the same issue. So as we go forward, and I'm helping driving resources back, Transportation, Housing, Urban Development Subcommittee, we've got to think of these in the same vein. We've got to think about how we coordinate this. And so we understand here, the number one thing that comes back in all polling, things cost too much. If you haven't read Abundance, maybe you want to give it a gander, but let's face it, folks, it's just basic supply and demand economics. It's nothing new, it's putting the modern world on that face. So if everything costs too much, we got to remember it starts with housing. We are in a housing crisis. What is the American dream? Owning that home, right? In the 80s, the first-time home buyer was in their late 20s. Today, the median age for the first-time buyers is 38. My two daughters are looking for homes. They're 35 years old, right? That's pretty typical for Chicago. The median home price in Chicago is now around $400,000. It requires an income of around 90 to 100, when the median income is $75,000. Expensive mortgages and rents are driving homelessness too. Chicago homelessness, as you know, is increasing rather than decreasing. How do we get into this mess? We haven't built enough housing. We need about 125,000 affordable units put into place, and I think we need to do it in the next 4 to 5 years. And as I said, we need to build, baby, build, never more than when it comes to housing. And we need to recognize what I said at the beginning. It shouldn't cost twice as much to build a house for the affordable housing than it is in the market. And let me say for my developers here, when I started this, developers like, oh, those are the bad guys. It was like, we want to preserve things the way they are, and developers want to encroach upon that. There were a lot of negative connotations. We need developers who want to come to Chicago and build, and we need to get the heck out of their way. Working with communities to do it responsibly, but we need to address a few things. It should not take a year to get a building permit in Chicago. Just top lines. We should reform our zoning rules. We should pass Alderman Lawson's ADU ordinance. We should streamline permitting and approvals. We should leverage public land for housing. We should build cross-agency coordination and accountability, have rapid response involving this with homelessness issues. And I always loved single-room occupancy hotels, right? They are fading from existence now. We need to prop up the ones that are there and figure out how to build some new ones, because that's great, safe housing, one level above homelessness. You can't talk about this without talking about the CHA. I love their mission. It's absolutely critical. And I'm not going to point fingers at the folks who have just taken over that helm. This is years of problems. And you don't have to take my word for it. As you know, the residents have protested. They reported mold, sewage leaks, lack of repairs, unresponsive management. And this is all unacceptable. They've got a waiting list of 200,000 people and way, way too many units waiting renovation. Now, I hear and I understand they need more federal money, but for years on that committee, I was told CHA has money and that they weren't spending it. Makes it a lot harder to get the new ones there. They have 130 acres of vacant land, enough to fill 25 city blocks. So we basically got to start over with our friends there, repurpose it, and understand just how important it is to make those changes. So let's talk just for a minute about transportation. We have to literally and figuratively clean up the system. A recent survey of RTA riders found that 68% personally witnessed harassment on the RTA system, 75% witnessed damage or dirty facilities or broken vehicles. Everyone deserves a good, safe, reliable experience when using public transit. The only way we're going to get there is to make it a priority, and that definitely includes the security that's involved. Now, and I understand there's talk about bringing back the CTA police force. The bottom line is, whether that's dedicated within the Chicago Police Department or their own, who's ever there has to be, that's their only responsibility. It has to be their priority. And while we're cleaning it up, we've got to change the structure. Right now, PACE, CTA, Metro, are months away from running out of money. The whole system has not come close to matching the recovery in ridership pre-pandemic. Within heavy rail, Chicago is just at 59% of our pre-pandemic ridership. Our peers are at 84%. So we have 47 board members, CTA, PACE, Metro, and RTA. It's understandable why perhaps we don't have the innovation, coordination, and accountability. So I'm hoping the state passes that bill, and I want to thank everyone who's involved in that. We also have to improve their purchasing power, which I think that will do. We also have to deliver on what we have. Appreciate that we have to get the red line done. But that probably is going to be, sadly, the last big new project we do, because you're not going to get any more help from the federal government, and we have to put our systems in a state of good repair. 20% of the CTA network is under slow zones. 50% of Metro's bridges are over 100 years old, so we've got to get that done. And we've got to do what other systems are doing across the country to handle the world post-pandemic. Just a thought on pensions. I'm going to talk about a lot more. Single largest item that we're dealing with in the city right now is pension contributions. At 17% currently, New York's at 9%. It's the highest of any major city. The problem just got a lot worse with the bill in Springfield for police and firefighters. Can we not have any more unfunded mandates coming out of Springfield? By the way, this is the alders that are clapping. So we need partners who will help not make it worse. You got to sit down with our partners and the stakeholders here and say, we're going to do this together, or we're going to meet in bankruptcy court. And I'm humored by those who say, well, Chicago can't file for bankruptcy. Well, we sure as hell can get to a point where we can't pay our obligations. We can't get there. It is for us now. This has to be a mission for us to accomplish this, because I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, this matters, because if all our money is going toward this end, it can't go to any of the issues that you care about. So I'm asked, if it's so bleak, why do you still have faith? Why should we all keep trying? I have faith. I am a Cubs fan. I get the symmetry of the world. I was at Ryan Sandberg's ceremony, a beautiful one at St. Pat's. They sat me between Uber Sox fan Mayor Daley and Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf. That's a beautiful moment. But I want you to watch something for about 90 seconds, and then I'll close. This is why we should still care. I mean, if that's a halftime speech, you want to go out and just beat the crap out of the other team. Herb Brooks' locker room speech to the Miracle on Ice team pales to that. I know these challenges are going to be really tough, and I know what it was like because when we tried it at the county, we learned there's a lot of sacred cows. Well, since Mrs. O'Leary, I guess that's an insult, but there's a lot of cows in Chicago. They all think they're sacred. We have to begin by telling the truth. We can attract new businesses. We can grow. We can have better schools. We can have safer streets. We can grow. So my last few lines, I'm going to quote two people. One of them's fictional, Toby from The West Wing, and one is the only saint I ever served with in Congress, John Lewis. And a note on The West Wing. Yeah, I can be really corny. People ask me if I watch House of Cards. I go, I live House of Cards. Why would I watch that? I love myself some Frank Capra and a West Wing. And when I'm asked which one's more realistic, the answer is, of course, Veep. Toby said, government, no matter what its failures in the past and times to come, can be a place for good, where no one gets left behind. We can only accomplish this together. And John taught us, we may have come over here in different ships, but we're in the same boat now. I have absolute faith in you. I have absolute faith in this great city, and I thank you for having me here today. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman. Excellent remarks. Thank you for agreeing to stick around for a few minutes for our favorite part. We're going to stay standing so everybody can see us in such a full
Stump
room.
the congressman.
No, we appreciate that. We appreciate your transparency and willingness to be here and answer all the questions. We talked about First Amendment rights, and we had some folks outside that were expressing those First Amendment rights. So in the spirit of transparency, let's start there.
Sure.
And let's talk about what they're protesting and maybe your stance on Palestine and
Sure.
Israel.
Look, I've been to Israel 7 times. I'll be going there again very soon. I've not lived through an issue that is more intense and emotional and brutal. And I don't know anyone who has not agonized over the horrible tragedy that's taking place in Gaza right now, but I would also add the West Bank. So recently I called for the establishment of a Palestinian state. It confused me that some would be as surprised at that, because I've been calling for a two-state solution forever, because it's the only long-term path to a potential for peace. What concerns me as well is, while Israel has every right to defend itself, I will continue to support that. The hostages have to be released, although most of them who have been released have been through diplomatic means. Hamas needs to end, but we've got a little window now. There's never going to be a perfect situation in which an establishment of a two-state solution is easy, but when the Arab League denounces Hamas and the October 7th attacks, and for the first time calls for them to lay down their arms, and for the first time calls for another force to move in there, you've got to take that shot. You've got to take that opportunity. And the fact that the majority of our allies agree. I'm also on the State and Foreign Ops Subcommittee. So I've met with, in one meeting, I think 20 different European ambassadors. They're all about to be where Germany just was, right? So I think Israel needs to appreciate the fact that we get their right to defend themselves. But how they do that matters too. We cannot allow what's happening in Gaza to continue. So it's a much, much longer answer, but it's not, are you with us or against us, right? Because who's us, right? We should care equally about both sides. Again, because the moral thing to do is usually the right thing to do in foreign policy, right? It's why we should have never eliminated USAID. So there's a lot more that has to happen here. We'll see how this plays out, but it does not mean, just because I want a two-state solution, it's in Israel's interest to have that, because Hamas is not just a military terrorist organization, they're a movement. And what's happening in Gaza now, again, if you're just looking at it from a cold-hearted, practical point of view, is the extraordinary recruiting tool for Hamas. So we move forward together, hopefully.
And while we're on global affairs, foreign policy, you're on the Intelligence Committee. Ukraine, Russia, the president just met with President Putin. Can you give us some insight, maybe something we haven't heard before? What's going on?
Well, look,
what happened there? What do we expect to see?
Sure,
next?
if you'll allow me to divulge some national security secrets.
You heard it at City Club, folks.
Just between the 200 of us. It's kind of basic, folks. Putin understands strength. Putin understands strength, and he does not see it in Trump. That's what's fundamental here. He sees in Trump someone who has never picked sides in this conflict. He sees in Trump someone who's let 6 deadlines go past. He sees in Trump someone who cut USAID, isn't doing another supplemental, has criticized Zelensky, has put sanctions on just about everybody in the world but Russia, has threatened that, but never has done it. So I've been in Ukraine 5 times since the conflict started, soon to go again, and I appreciate the fact this is a war of attrition that Putin wins, and he knows it. So he's putting this off as long as he can, because he knows that he can forever move forward. He outmans Ukraine 6-1. And when he knows that he's got a president who's not going to pass another supplemental, we're in trouble. I'll say this for my Republican friends. There's a core group, French Hill, Bacon, Fitzpatrick, several others, who are true believers. But it's only about a total of about half of the Republican caucus. So putting aside Ukraine, here's what I want you to do and think about this in terms of foreign policy. What doctrine are they voting against now? The Reagan doctrine. The Republican Party, as we knew it under Reagan, is no more. What that means in terms of foreign policy and the broader issues is, back to what's moral and right are usually intertwined. Who are our friends now? You mentioned I've been on the Intel Committee in my 9th year now. If I've learned anything is, we are a lot safer having friends. We get incredibly important information from some of the smallest countries in the world that save the lives of our service members and lives here. We tariff them, we criticize them, we tell NATO they're on their own, we eliminate USAID, there's a void there that people like, entities like China pop into. FDR in his last inaugural. By the way, did anyone notice that presidential speeches that are the shortest are the best ever? Lincoln, maybe 3 minutes. FDR's last inaugural, he said real pearls that apply today. We've learned to have a friend, you need to be one. And we've learned that what takes place in countries far away affects us here. So there's a lot more to talk about in terms of foreign policy. And just because I'm focused today on domestic, I go back Tuesday, we're going to continue to focus on foreign policy, national policy, and what it means here in Chicago. We can and must be able to do more than one thing at a time.
Thank you, and we'll get a little more local. That was something. Thank you for those taking us around the world a little bit. We have a few pre-submitted questions, and 2 or 3 of them. Well, I'll just get a couple out of the way that everybody wants to
Sure.
ask, and then
We'll do rapid fire here.
great. There were a number of questions about ALS. You remember the ALS caucus. I know that you've done a lot for medical research, specifically with regards to ALS. Can you talk about that? That was a few years ago.
Sure.
How's that coming along?
My father passed from Parkinson's. There's nobody in this room who has not been touched in one way, through friend, loved one, self, by neurological diseases. We passed the Act for ALS. Our friends Brian and Sandra and Aviva's friends worked very closely with us, and we got that bill passed. A game changer for it. But it wasn't just about ALS, it was about all those, because some of those core research and how we fund these issues were all tied together. By the way, it had 290 co-sponsors in the House. People wonder if there's any chance for co-sponsorship. It's stuff like that. But it raises extraordinary concerns for cuts for research institutions like the ones here in Chicago, and there were life-saving, game-changing things that save lives, grow the economy, make Chicago part of what it is. So we have to get Act for ALS reauthorized and refunded, because all the things that we learn there are going to help those who suffer from these diseases across the board.
Thank you for those efforts. You said earlier that a mayor needs to think like an alderman or an alder. I think and sit in that chair, answer those calls. I think the question that everyone is wondering is, are you going to run for alderman?
You know, someone was joking about me running for different things, and they said, you know, Mike, someday we Irish will take our transit power in Chicago. I was talking about this with John Daly just the other day. Look, I'm running for re-election for Congress. I am focused on the first thing I said we need to focus on, not who should run, but what needs to be done. So, no press release flashes today, but, I think this still matters, The public's been lied to so long and so much. Are they ready? They're hearing it from my friends who are in this room, right? Are they ready for everyone to tell them, this is the situation, here's what we have to do? So I think that's going to be my focus for the most part, at least for the next several months.
Thank you. We do have time for a question or two if it's somebody close. So please raise your hand if you do have one up close. And don't be shy. Did we ask them all? Kate Whitlock, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, Kay Whitlock, Vice President at Christopher Burke Engineering. Are our COVID vaccines going to remain safe, and for how long?
No, and I think there's a bit of amnesia about COVID generally. I'm particularly concerned with funding for veterans. As you know, Jesse Brown, right here. We were there, so it goes beyond COVID. We were there the day when the first cuts happened. And the administrators were telling us that people were just not showing up. And they'd call and they say, well, I was fired directly from Washington, and they never told them. And some of these are just, all of them are just really important, but some are just absolutely critical to care for the example you just gave. So there's amnesia about COVID. Secretary Kennedy is a heartless moron who does not understand what the hell goes on. So to go beyond your question, I'm concerned about all of those things. And if anyone, it's not a question when we're going to have the next, if we're going to have a next epidemic, but when. And by the way, again, the practical reasons for why we care about things, you mentioned COVID, and I'll talk about all epidemics. You ought to care about what happens over there for one more reason, because the front line of how we handle epidemics is not here, it's not New York, it's places like Northern Africa, Western Africa. This is what we have to be concerned about. So when you're an isolationist, you put yourself at the greatest risk. And if the folks who, the voices from the past, the voices from 1939 didn't tell us that isolationism was perhaps a bad idea, maybe we should listen to those voices now and understand that they put us at great risk from a military point of view, from a health point of view, from an economic point of view, everything that you care about. So, I think the fact that we're able to work on international issues and the national issues and come back here about local, I think that's why when I said our electeds here think globally and need to, that's why it matters even more. You cannot live within the bounds of your own jurisdiction and serve the whole public well.
I think we're pretty much out of time unless there's someone real close. Okay, all right. Nicole, please make it quick.
While she's doing this, I want to tell you that I was asked, my staff cringes at this, we hear you tell dad jokes. Can you tell a Chicago dad joke? Yes, I can. Why won't the two statues in front of the Art Institute ever get together? Because they're parallel lions. No, come on. My daughters used to cringe. They used to love my jokes, then they cringe. Now they're 35. They say, go on, Dad, make a fool of yourself. It's all the credibility I've tried to build up in the last hour. So it goes.
Congress. Dan, you can't blame me for Congressman.
And by the way, try to make it a dad Chicago geometry joke.
It's the trifecta, Congressman. Congressman Quigley, 26 years in the city of Chicago. I've never seen solidarity like I did on Monday. It made me proud to be a Chicagoan. Thank you to everybody in this room that showed up on Monday. Is it enough? Does it send a message that dissuades reckless action?
It I was proud of it too, thank you. It was a great group, and I appreciate the fact that there was unity in law enforcement, cultural, business, people calling our office, elected officials, and so forth. Okay. The money they spent with the National Guard in Los Angeles, how many groups like CRED could we bring on to do additional work to prevent violence before it happens? How many thousands of police officers, because we're talking about a ton of money to bring them out there. And by the way, in DC, they're picking up litter on the mall. They're feeding birds. And we ought to respect those who provide that service as National Guardsmen. So obviously there's a whole lot of reasons to be upset about this, not putting aside the fact that you have a president that's doing it because he is shifting more and more to the authoritarian point, right? Final thought, and then I know you want to get going. We need to remind ourselves where Hungary was before Viktor Orban took over. There was polling there, and about a third of them said, democracy is not always the best form of government. It was a fledgling democracy, a fledgling economic growth. It's important to know that you can elect someone democratically who can then use the tools of democracy to bring it down. That's what Viktor Orban did. That's what this president's doing now. But that's why I'm glad that people were there with us on that day and as we go forward. Thank you all again so much.
Thank you, Congressman Quigley. Last question to you is, will you come back? We have so much more to talk about. Thank you. You mentioned housing transportation. We have a big panel coming up, and we hope you'll check out our site for all of these upcoming panels and join us back here soon. Thank you, Congressman Quigley. We're going to leave you with a hat to take back to D.C. and show all your friends how proud you are of all the good that's happening in Chicago. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.